sequence of the creative order, or the way the law and the word work, is, first of all, absolute intelligence. Next, its word or thought. Following this, the law is set in motion. Then at the end of the sequence is the creation or the formation of the word in definite and specific circumstances, situations, or creations, which are the logical, inevitable, mathematical, and mechanical reactions of the law to the creative word. Now, if you'd like to read that again, it's on page 199. Throughout the Bible and all sacred books, we find this same idea that the word acting as law produces a definite result. So keep reading, that's on page 200. Now we must remember that all these sacred writings refer to God as the macrocosm or the universe, and humanity as the microcosm, the individual. That's on 200 with the other one. Humanity reproduces this creative order on a miniature scale. Please join me in using the creative power of the spoken word, combined with the conviction of the heart, as we speak this affirmation into being. Today I create a new reality. I listen within for the newly emergent vision, pulled by a vision of possibilities. I choose words, thoughts, and actions that speak the truth of the vision for my life and for the planet.
Amen and hallelujah.
So the spiral of conscious evolution, the spiral of life, and the idea that everything comes, first of all, from thought or the word. You know, the sacred text used the idea of the word with a capital W, of the first cause, the universe, God, the spirit. There are different names for this infinite presence that gives rise to this physical universe. And we as individualized expressions of that one. So it's a reminder to us that yes, we're in these earth suits or bodies, but the essence of who we are is ever evolving spirit, ever more fully expressing all of those qualities of the spirit that we think of. And today we're, of course, honoring love, that presence of love, but the ever evolving nature of love, peace, joy, beauty, grace, intelligence, wisdom, all of those beautiful aspects of the divine that we are in truth. So we are that in essence, and in this human expression, we are called. We actually have this drive or urge within us to express more of that, which is that unsettling feeling that you have sometime that there's more of me to give to the world. There's more of me to express. That's that inner urge that's built in within every one of us. And at the same time, there is the conditioned mind. And again, that's part of our humanity. That's part of our self-preservation. It's kind of built into our physicality. Over time, it's evolved to that point for a really good purpose, to help us to survive on the planet. So we don't want to diminish it, but we also want to know that it's there for us to mold and to work with. And so our human earth suit and the conditioned mind are simply part of the expression that we have, and we're able as spirit beings to actually rewire ourselves, create new neural pathways that more fully align with the qualities of divinity that we are, these beautiful essences of love and peace and joy and goodness of every kind. So the thing about the conditioned mind that to be aware of is that with that inner urge to grow, expand, and to unfold in all of that goodness, there's also the resistance. So do you feel that? The resistance of the conditioned mind. And if we're not awake and aware to this process, that resistance can keep us stuck. And resistance on a personal level means personal crisis, after a while. In other words, everything is designed by an incredible intelligence of all that is, which is beyond our human mind to completely and totally embrace and understand. But it's there. We are that. Yes, we are that. That's what we are. And so the beautiful process is, okay, there's the urge, the inner urge, there's the resistance of the conditioned mind, but then there's the crisis that takes place, which becomes the evolutionary driver to help us break through those old patterns. So it's all set up, and with global crisis being what it is, so this is true for us on on a personal level, but also on a global level. So with global crisis, that means that we are on the brink of incredible evolutionary upheaval. So if we want to look at the good part that's happening, it's really calling forth in all of us that something greater that we are in truth. So this month we're looking at, okay, so here's the thing. So we can either be pushed by crisis, by pain, by inner pain and distress, or we can step into our divine nature and choose and participate in our own evolutionary process and be pulled by a vision. So as we continue to have that vision of who we are in truth and to allow it to unfold, and as we use spiritual law to support that, we are participating in our own evolutionary process, which is one of the things that I really love about this teaching that's really awakened me to. And when we meditate, when we do affirmative prayer, when we do our affirmations, when we change a negative thought into a positive thought, we are participating in our own evolution. We are being pulled by a higher vision. And therefore, we are not only supporting ourselves because we're connected with everyone, we are supporting everyone on the planet. How cool is that? Okay, so last week we talked about the importance of meditation and forming that direct contact with the divine. And this time I want to delve into more powerfully, which I'm sure you got a hint from what Nancy was talking about, this thing called the sequence of creative order. And that is demonstrated in this thing called the science of mind symbol. So I want to talk more about the science of mind symbol today and make it as relevant as possible for us so that we can just put it into practice right away. So this is it, and actually it's here on our altar, on our podium cloth as well. But this symbol is a symbol of the sequence of creative order, the creative process, whether it's on the macrocosmic scale of the universe or whether it's on the scale of each one of us as individualized expressions of the all that is. So here's the thing. You'll notice it has spirit, soul, body, conscious cause, subconscious medium, and effect. So one of the best ways to describe this is through the idea of seed, soil, and plant. So the seed, or a new thought, I'm going to be equating them. It's a great metaphor. The seed or a new thought, a new idea, or that higher vision that we have of ourselves immediately falls into or is affected by, or whatever, is affected by what we call law or a creative medium, which is the soil. So when we plant a seed in the soil, it's the same thing as us planting our thought in the creative medium. And we do that automatically when we have the thought. It goes into the creative medium or the law. And we could call it the energy of all that is. It could be the energy surrounds us, the quantum field, however you want to look at that. And so then what happens is the result, which is the plant. So seed, soil, plant, thought, subconscious mind. So it gets implanted in our subconscious mind, and the result in our lives. So when we look at our lives, the way they are right now, how we perceive them, and so on, it's a history of our thought and our beliefs up to this point. And remember, because we are awake and aware to all of this, and the way our thoughts create, we, in this very moment, can begin to not only create our experience in the present moment, but to create our experience in the future. We're actually laying the seeds, planting the seeds for our future. Louise Hay, who I think is the Divine Mother herself in person, she made her transition just recently, and these are her beautiful words of wisdom. By the way, when she started her ministry, she, first of all, was a practitioner of religious science, like many of our people are here. And she helped to, through what she knew, helped to heal herself of cancer. And from that, she went on to minister to AIDS patients. And so she was in the area of California, and she would just gather all of them around her and teach them spiritual principle and how to heal their lives. So she talk about Divine Mother. So here's a quote by her. She said, "Every thought we think and every word we speak is creating our future. Our thoughts go out into the universe and are accepted and brought back to us as experience." So the three things that I'm going to be speaking about today are the idea that our thoughts, our words are creative. That's the principle itself. I'll be talking about the misuse and right use of those thoughts. And as what we often call heaven and hell, we've often talked about heaven and hell as some place that we go afterwards, but we've come to realize that heaven and hell are states of mind, depending on how we're using our thoughts and words. And then I'll be ending with the idea of understanding that everything that surrounds us is as an effect. And so when we come from that awareness, we can begin to glean wisdom from it, use it as wisdom in order to move forward. All right, so words and thoughts create our reality. We know that there is a lot of scientific research in this day and age that shows that thoughts create our reality. We've been talking about the work of Lynn McTaggart and the Power of Eight. And there's been a lot of other research. But one of the fairly classic ones that's not too long ago is the work by Dr. Emoto. Anybody know Dr. Masaru Emoto? Yes. Well, one of the things he did is he was studying water. He was really into water and water quality. So he was studying tap water and lake water and all different kinds of water and wanted to see if he could find the essential difference between the water molecule. And he didn't really have a breakthrough until he froze them and ice crystals were formed. So if you look at this, and also offering prayer and looking at the result afterwards. So here's a water molecule before a prayer was offered, and this is after a prayer. So look at the beautiful crystal that was formed. And also, he would put labels on jars that said, thank you, or you make me sick, I will kill you, or love and appreciation, to see what effect that had on water crystals. So look at thank you, how beautiful that is. And also love and appreciation. It's a little dim here, but I've seen some there. It's actually a really beautiful crystal. And then what happens when we use negative thinking? Now, again, the thing that's really important to realize is how much of our body is water. Anybody think about that?
70-some%.
So this is what happens with water crystals. And so when we think about what happens every time we think in our own bodies, it's pretty profound. And so, if anything, it will motivate us to really watch our thoughts and be sure that what we're using is constructive, healthy thinking about ourselves and also about others, because whatever we think about others affects us, right? Well, Dr. Masaru Emoto also did another kind of experiment called the rice experiment. And in this one, he set out again to prove that words, thoughts, and intentions affect reality. So this is what he did. He put cooked rice into 3 different containers. And in the first one was labeled with thank you. The second was labeled with you fool. And the third one had a little sign that said completely ignore. And he put it in a classroom with young children. And for 30 days, the children were instructed to go over each jar and just read the words. So it said thank you to that one, and you fool to that one, and then just completely ignore the last one, right? So after 30 days, can you guess what happened?
The thank you rice sprouted?
The thank you rice stayed white and clear and healthy looking. Okay. Okay. This is this experiment has been duplicated, by the way, many times by other people. The one that was ignored began to rot, and the one where there was "you fool" actually turned black in that period of time. So the point is, and we know this, don't we? We know inherently, we know this, that love heals.
And chocolate too.
All right. So love heals, and ignoring or neglecting is unhealthy. You know, this is what really calls us to love one another, and that when we directly hate or think negative thoughts about other people or ourselves, we're doing damage. So thoughts affect reality. Our thoughts, our words, our intentions affect reality. And so the physicists say this about the quantum world. And this is what's cool, because science and spirituality are intersecting so beautifully in this day and age. We're so blessed to be present in this time and age. They say that our brains continually sift through possibilities and decide which bits of information to focus on. And again, all of this depends on our circuitry, on our beliefs, and so on. So we see, feel, touch, smell, taste a world that our brains concoct. So look around you for a moment and realize that everybody in this room is wired differently. They are having a different experience than you are of the same thing. Just look around and think about that. We're all having a different experience depending on our wiring, right? It's really interesting, isn't it? So here's the thing, is that so we're tapping into just a little bit of reality because of our circuitry. And so there's this whole other realm of reality available to us that is not recognized. But that means if we're aware of that, we can begin to open ourselves to that greater reality that's available. So John Mansell Monsell, a neuroscientist at Harvard University, says people imagine that they're seeing what's there, but they're not. So once the brain decides which bits to let in, it begins to build bridges between the nerve cells or the neurons and create neural pathways. The average human has, listen to this, 100 billion nerve cells. So think of all the different possible wirings that you can have in your brain. And we know that the brain is neuroplastic, it's not set in stone. So we can rewire it, which is really exciting. So again, your brain map is as different from the person next to you as a map of Ireland or a map of the Sahara Desert. Completely different. So we end up missing a lot. We can miss a lot of good stuff going on in life because of our wiring. And there's a beautiful metaphor that I'm actually borrowing from the woman who, I'm totally blanking on her name right now because I didn't write it down. But anyway, from the woman who did E Squared. Pam Grout, right, from Pam Grout. I thought this was a beautiful metaphor. It's a metaphor of Interstate 70 that goes through Kansas. And so here's the thing, is Interstate 70 goes through the flat part of Kansas, and anybody that goes on Interstate 70 will come to the conclusion that Kansas is flat and boring, right? Because that's the route they chose for the road. However, meanwhile, there are these incredible beautiful rock formations that are in different parts of Kansas. One of them is called Castle Rock, and I think, one's like a Grand Canyon area. Dan has one of them, and beautiful chalk formations that are gorgeous, like this. And okay, there's Castle Rock, which is 7 stories high, and just beautiful, beautiful, beautiful rock formations. So that's what happens with us if we are on this path. In other words, we have these particular pathways that only let in these bits of information. We can miss all the abundance and beauty and good that's available for us. But we can rewire ourselves. That's the cool part. But it's important to realize that that is going on to begin with. So we get off the beaten path then by using the spiritual laws that our words and our thoughts create our reality. I happened to be cleaning out my office a couple days ago, and I ran across this beautiful little booklet that I got probably back in, I'm guessing like 1990 or something, and I haven't looked at it in a while. And actually, Emmett Fox was one of the first New Thought writers that I read. Anybody else read Emmett Fox's? Yeah, right. And so this is called The Golden Key. This is a great way to break out of those narrow ways that we look at life. It's called The Golden Key by Emmett Fox. And it's actually very simple. He talks about scientific prayer. And really anybody can learn how to do this. And the way he describes it is, by the way, this is the golden key to your happiness, but also to your expansion and consciousness. He said, whenever you have a situation in your life that you would like to change, whether it's your reaction to another person, whether it's your finances, whether it's just a troubling situation in the world, whatever it might be, he said, turn your attention to God and think about God. Stop thinking about that other thing. Think about God. Think about everything that you know about God. Now, for those of you who have challenges with the word God, okay, think of it as the field of pure potentiality and possibility, that quantum level. So we think about that presence, the field of pure love, infinite love. God is love, perfect love, all love. God is infinite joy, beyond imagination, a field of pure potentiality and possibility, the first cause of all that exists in this world, the presence of grace itself, ever giving of itself to its creation. And I'm an individualized expression of that. So the more that we continue to focus on this higher truth, the more we start rewiring ourselves in an expanded way. We start breaking out of the old patterns of limitation that have been wired in over the period of our lifetime. He said, don't try to form a picture of God, which is impossible. Work by rehearsing anything and everything you know about this presence: wisdom, truth, inconceivable love, all power, etc. So that's, and he says it could be something as simple as this. There is no power but God. I am a child of God, filled and surrounded by perfect peace of God. God is love. God is guiding me now. So whatever works for you, the idea is to not outline how you want things to turn out with that situation, but to focus on the divine presence, the spiritual truth, the truth beyond this physical reality that gives rise to this physical reality. And everything will change. Powerful, huh? The golden key. Yay, Emmett Fox. Again, he says the solution will appear, and it may not be exactly what you think it'll be, but it'll be a good solution. So the second point I wanted to discuss was this idea of the misuse of our words and thoughts, which has come to be called either evil or hell. That's where those two terms have come from. It's really an error in our thinking. An error in our thinking that's based on fear, that's based on the idea of lack and limitation and separation from the all that is. And so the right use, which is what we just did, the golden key, the right use of thought produces a state of consciousness called heaven. Heaven, enlightenment, heaven. So everything begins, either heaven or hell, our experience of that begins in our own thinking. So we're going to choose what?
Heaven.
Okay, say, I choose heaven.
I choose heaven.
Very good. So one of the great examples of that, of how we can look at something in two different ways, is the idea of the glass. Thank you, Dan. Right on time. That idea of, is the glass half empty or half full, right? Because if we take a look at, you can see how the idea of heaven and hell depends on how we look at that, right? So the beauty of it is at any point in time, we can reframe how we're looking at something and choose something that uplifts us. We can look for the good. Mark Allen wrote a book called The Greatest Success of All: Simple Steps to Abundance, Fulfillment, and a Life Well Lived, where he said our thoughts determine our actions, which lead inevitably to success or failure, fulfillment or frustration. And he told a story of 30 years from when he wrote this book previously. He was writing down his goals. And his main goal was start and build a successful company. So that's what he wrote down. And immediately he started getting all of the self-talk. Anybody recognize that? When you set a goal and all the self-talk starts going. And so what he was hearing was, he said, I was assaulted by fear and doubt. Things like, who are you trying to kid? You have no money. You need money to make money. You know nothing about business. You don't even like business. And it'll wreck your creativity. It'll destroy your soul. Money is the root of all evil. The rich man has as much chance of entering heaven as a camel does going through the eye of a needle. And on it went, an endless stream of doubts, fears, and negative thoughts. And of course, we know the metaphysical meanings of that particular part of the Bible has to do with something completely different from the way it's often been interpreted. And I don't want to get into that right now, but the whole concept is that all when we begin to set a new goal, when we begin to try to create a new neural pathway for ourselves, the conditioned mind is going to go crazy. It just does. And when we know that, we can be ready for it. So anyway, he said he had an inspiration. He remembered Catherine Ponder. He'd read Catherine Ponder's book, one of her books, and in it she talked about creating affirmations to counter these kinds of assaults by our own self-talk. And Catherine Ponder, for those of you who don't know who she is, she's a unity minister, which is again another form of New Thought, our kind of our sister spiritual communities. And she wrote that the power of affirmations or declarations that our dream, our goal are already happening are, again, a complete understanding of the power of our words to create a new reality. So she said, it's best when they are in present tense and also worded to get to the subconscious mind, so the subconscious mind will accept it. And so she said, affirmations are even more healthy if they start and end with this phrase. And you don't have to write it down because it's actually on that little piece of paper that everybody got. The phrase is, in an easy and relaxed manner and in a healthy and positive way, and then you fill in the blank. So he rewrote his affirmation to, in an easy and relaxed manner and a healthy and positive way, I am now building a successful business. He repeated that every day, multiple times. And he says, years later, looking back, I realized how powerful those words were. So powerful, in fact, that by repeating them daily, I overcame many of my doubts and fears. And what are the doubts and fears, after all? They're the opposite of that phrase, right? They are things like, and so instead of it's easy, it's hard, right? Or instead of it's relaxing, our minds will tell us it's yeah, right. Or rather than saying that this is healthy and positive for me, our minds will tell us that it is
Bad for me.
yeah, right. Just like his thought that it'll wreck my creativity, it'll destroy my soul, right? Those are the again the things to be aware of. And so hell then is when we're telling ourselves that we're not good enough, that we're not smart enough, that we're being left out, or that we should be farther along in life. Anybody recognize that one? Or that it's hard, all the things that we just talked about. Hell is when we feel unhappy. That's a key. When we know that we're thinking thoughts that are not serving us, we feel unhappiness. And so he ends by saying, Mark Allen ends by saying, I've been to hell plenty of times and I've decided to come back. So I've been to hell plenty of times and I've decided to come back. And he's coming back to, again, that state of heaven, which is our natural state, that heavenly state, that state of happiness. Number 3, everything surrounding us is an effect. Amy Moran wrote, if you draw inaccurate conclusions about who you are and what you're capable of doing, you'll limit your potential. So if you believe you're not good enough, you'll tend to put in less effort or do things that sabotage yourself, right? Which limits success. If you tell yourself or you believe that you're socially awkward, there'll be a tendency to isolate oneself, right? Which then will reinforce that behavior. So beliefs get reinforced because of the neural pathways, right, that are already there. And there are actually two different ways that we can reinforce our own beliefs. And one is to look around for the evidence that it's true. And the other one is if the evidence that it's false is presented to us, to ignore it. Anybody recognize that at all? If not in ourselves, we often see it in other people. Maybe don't see it so well in ourselves. Okay, so everything we touch, taste, feel, hear with our physical senses is an effect. It's the result of the history of our thought. It's the wiring that we've put in place in our neurobiology. Ernest Holmes says established thoughts tend to reestablish themselves every chance they get, and new thinking tends to get resisted by already resident thought patterns. Still, effort must be made if we are to live lives of greater power and authority. Effort must be made. Not only effort, but persistence. Otherwise, we get what? Same old, same old. George Bernard Shaw said this. He said, life isn't about finding yourself. Life is about creating yourself. Life is about creating yourself. You know, redesigning the neural pathways, catching a higher vision, moving in that direction. So our thoughts and words then create our reality, the signs of mind symbol, the creative process symbol. So let's stop repeating the patterns. Let's stop them in their track. Let's start planting seeds of new thoughts, new creations, and let's see what happens. Everybody on board? I know many of us are doing that already, but let's get reinvigorated about this. So what I did is I gave everybody a handout. So this is an opportunity for us to mother ourselves today, to love ourselves, to put that mothering energy into effect. And let's create a new version of ourselves right here and right now. All right? So the first thing to do is ask yourself, what do you want? What is it that you want in your life that maybe is not completely expressed? So maybe your life is actually going pretty well, but what's the next level of expression that you can feel being called forth in you? And create your intention now. So I actually have a piece of paper there where it says, it is my intention that I am or I have. So I'm going to give you a moment to fill that out. Anybody need pens? Let's turn that into an affirmation. And this is where you can use, in an easy and relaxed manner, in a healthy and positive way, I am or I have, and fill it out. Notice if you've read on that I recommended a way to put yourself on the fast track. So if you want to be on the fast track with this affirmation, if you have anybody have mala beads, if you don't have mala beads, you can get them just about anywhere. I know I actually got 2 sets of them when I went to the Hindu temple that's over in York Lynn, and they gave one to me, and then they were blessed, and they actually did a Lakshmi chant over them. So they don't have to be that, but get yourself some mala beads that are meaningful for you. You can get them on Amazon. I actually just ordered another set because different crystals stand for different qualities. And the idea is to do the affirmation and move to the next bead, do the affirmation and move to the next bead. And if you want to be on the fast track, it's 108. So 108 times twice a day. And when you get to the final bead, that's where you just take a moment and you hold that final bead and just give thanks to God, give thanks to the universe. Okay? So they're actually a beautiful tool to use to really rewire the circuitry, create new neural pathways, and create a new reality. So the next one says, create an affirmative prayer or meet with a practitioner to learn how. And if you use the concept of the golden key, which is just think about God, everything that you know about the divine, and yourself being an individualized expression of that, that's it. That's the crux of it.
Even
Just
repeating the names of God like we did in class that week.
yes.
Makes you feel incredible. Just everything you can think of the name of God, just over and over, all of them, just string them together, and by the end you'll feel incredible.
Yes. And the idea is to raise your vibration, and it actually puts you right in contact with the field of pure potentiality and possibility, which is where things just start bursting into being. You raise your vibration to be in alignment with that vision. And then it says, what if your future consisted of what you were grateful for today? So, what can you write down that you're grateful for? I'm so happy and grateful now that. Just think of a few things. I'm grateful for all of you, for this beautiful spiritual community. I'm grateful for people who are sharing this journey with me to realize our divinity, our full potential, to make a difference in the world, to be the presence of love, co-creating heaven on earth. Whatever it is that you're grateful for. Wrap that up. You can always add more later. And let's take a moment and turn within, realizing that right here and right now in this moment is the full power and presence of God, the infinite almighty, the all that is, the field of pure potentiality and possibility, that one life that is the very source and essence of all that is. And knowing that I am that life individualized. Each one of us is that life individualized. Each one of us, in essence, the presence of love and peace and joy and abundance and goodness of every kind. That we are that life expressing, unfolding, that inner urge to grow, to expand, to unfold in consciousness is being honored right here and right now in this moment as we participate in our own conscious evolution, as we begin to change our thoughts around and shift them in the direction of that which we choose to create in our lives, as we let go of the self-talk that no longer serves us, as we supplant it with higher truth, with higher wisdom, with the vision of who we are in truth ever unfolding. I know that each one of us is totally successful in this endeavor. And that means more happiness, more peace, more joy, more goodness, more love of every kind in our lives. And for this, I give my thanks. I release this word into the universal law of mind, and so it is. So it is. Amen.